Hey, Dr. C here with you. Perchlorate has been in the news quite a bit as of late. In March of 2022, the EPA chose not to regulate perchlorate levels in our national drinking water. This is a continuation of a policy that was a reversal of a prior policy. So it was monitored, then it's not. They will continue not monitoring it. This is relevant because perchlorate can affect thyroid function and because undisputably at least 16 million Americans are exposed to too much of that. So I want to take a minute and talk about what perchlorate is and how it might matter to you. So for starters, what is it? Well, this is a compound. It's a molecule that's comprised of 4 oxygen atoms and 1 chlorine atom. As you might guess if you've had some chemistry, it's volatile stuff. It's no coincidence that it's used in rocket fuel and fireworks and flares and fertilizer. A lot of F words there. But yeah, a lot of things like that is because it's so volatile. And it's known to be a thyroid disruptor. In fact, back in the day, it was given in doses of 500 to 1,000 milligrams as a treatment for hyperthyroidism. And it's in our water supply. It's in our foods as well. And we're not really properly regulating it. So here's some real quick action steps you should think about, and we'll talk more in detail about the rest of this issue of perchlorate. Do purified water, do purified drinking water. Don't do tap water, and don't rely heavily upon bottled water. And then everyone also, I'd really encourage avoiding and limiting smoked and cured meats. I'll talk about a few more details that could be relevant for some people. So this is something that we find in the soil first and foremost, and it's different in different parts of the country. Pretty much all parts of the country have some and can be significant, but in the desert Southwest, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, also Texas, we've got a lot of it. It's really high down here. So it's like the epicenter of that. And because of that, it ends up in our drinking water and in certain of our foods. So which foods? Well, processed and smoked and cured meats, they're easy not to love for a lot of other reasons. They've got the nitrates, they've got the saturated fats, they've got preservatives. So yeah, they also tend to be high in perchlorate. But again, easy not to love. Here's the bummer. There are some good veggies that can have perchlorate as well. The good news is the amount in any one kind of food is radically different per different samples. So if your diet has a lot of variety of plant foods, you shouldn't stress too much about any of these things. But we do see it in high amounts in occasion in collard greens, spinach, cantaloupe, sometimes in tomatoes. And we'll talk more about action steps as we go along. In massive amounts, it specifically blocks the thyroid's ability to regulate its iodine uptake. And that's why it can slow the thyroid and trigger thyroid disease. And we've known forever, again, that high amounts can do that. No debate about that. The new piece of data is that amounts that are not all that high do seem to relate to thyroid function in healthy people. What I mean by that is they've taken people and looked at their urinary perchlorate excretion and then compared who's higher, who's lower with their thyroid function. And these are people that are not catastrophically high in perchlorate. They're rather normal day-to-day exposures. But those who are high normal have lower thyroid output than otherwise. And this is especially pronounced in women. There's not even a big difference based upon iodine status. But yes, we do know this can be one more thing that harms and slows the thyroid. And there's pretty clear data that it's even worse if there are other factors present, like thiocyanates, which is like from tobacco smoke. So perchlorate's absorbed mostly orally, but a little bit across the skin and a little bit in the respiratory tract. Now, I thought about this and I was wondering if that means that you would need to have purified water for bathing as well. Not a bad idea for other reasons, but perchlorate, it remains ionized when it's directly in water. So unless you're drinking the water, that form of it won't cross your skin. So showering and bathing, even if you're in an area that has more perchlorate in the water, that won't really come into your body. A logical question is, should I test myself for perchlorate? Well, you can't. There's no commercially available tests. And honestly, if there were, they probably wouldn't be useful because perchlorate has a very short half-life. Good or bad, your body pees it out pretty quickly, like 6 to 8 hours. So if you were to test for it, like after an overnight fast, there probably wouldn't be much of any there. And even if you were exposed throughout the day, it probably wouldn't likely show up consistently on the tests. So what else should you do about that? Let's talk more about these other considerations. Everybody, again, should be using purified water. And I think the most practical thing is to use a reverse osmosis system at your home or your apartment. And in many cases, these can be used in rental places as well as places that you own. They're cost effective, they require minimal but some maintenance. The next best option is buying purified water. There are stores that sell purified water, and that's their main focus. They are good options. The other thing is buying water that's bottled, that's purified via reverse osmosis or by distillation. I know distilled water sounds scary. It doesn't sneak in and run off with your minerals. If you put a slug in water, it pulls minerals out of them. When you put water inside of you, it's completely, it has no way to take water out. It doesn't take minerals out. It just doesn't work that way. So there's no harm to that. Water tastes better with minerals. And there's those that put a pinch of salt in distilled water. Many companies that make purified water add some minerals for flavor, totally fine. But distilled water is not harmful for you to consume. So that's an option. My favorite, again, is reverse osmosis at home. Bottled water that's from tap or municipal sources or spring sources is not regulated for perchlorate content. So we don't know if that's really any better or any safer. If it were bottled from somewhere that had high perchlorate, it could be higher or worse than it would be from other areas. If you do have a well, it's worth testing your well, especially if you're in the desert Southwest. And the EPA has some resources to help with that. So that's the big thing. And the bulk of this really is managing water. Now, food, again, the smoked and cured meats, they're not your friend anyway. So don't make them regular staples. We have the most data about bologna and salami for whatever reason, but there's no good reason to think that other smoked or cured meats would be radically different. So good advice for everybody. Now, what if your thyroid just will not get reined in? What if it's just unstable? Nothing seems to help it. In those cases, you might want to dig a little deeper. Now, here, I get mixed feelings because some of the sources of perchlorate are foods that are otherwise really good. One of the vegetable sources that's most consistently high in perchlorate is collard greens. They're not bad foods. If you can get them in ways that are not from high perchlorate regions, they're less likely to be troublesome. So, but even then, they are just the highest source. I wouldn't make them daily staples. I wouldn't eat collard greens more than once a week. I wouldn't avoid them further. I wouldn't be afraid to eat them once a week, but I would cap them about there. Now, your other big considerations are going to be spinach, tomatoes, and cantaloupe. Now, these will see radically different amounts of perchlorate even from the same area. But the biggest sources that are worrisome are going to be California, Arizona, and Mexico. So if I were really trying to make sure my thyroid was stable, I would put a lot of other steps before this, but I wouldn't ignore this. I wouldn't make spinach from Goodyear, Arizona, like a daily staple. Just rotate sources, rotate foods, have a variety of greens, have a variety of vegetables, and take a look at where your food comes from. More supermarkets now make that apparent. And if you've got options to have food from other areas, mix and match. Feel free to have some from the Southwest, but look at other options as well. And with variety, you can do fine. So a big thing really is just your day-to-day water intake. Once that's dialed in, this should not be a factor for you. But if you are in an area that has higher perchlorate, this could be a thing not only worsening, but also creating thyroid disease amongst children and loved ones. So purified water, important stuff. All right, take good care. We'll talk again really soon. Bye-bye.